the #1 Costa Rica real estate and investment podcast, bringing you experts from all over Costa Rica.
Good afternoon, guys, and welcome to episode 237 of Costa Rica Real Estate and Investments with me, your host, Richard Beckson. Today, we're going to be talking to Laurent Langlais. I actually asked him about his last name, Anglais, which actually means English. He is French, but he has his last name means the English. So anyway, we got chatting about that. But anyway, Laurent is a Feng Shui expert that basically from Europe, but has lived all over the world, most recently up in Vancouver, is now here in Costa Rica, actually in Santa Teresa. He's also been down in Uvita as well. But what Laurent does is very unique. He's a Feng Shui practitioner, which helps with basically positioning of land and also buildings, making sure that the energy is right and things flowing. I must admit, I was a bit of a skeptic before we started talking, and now I'm actually probably going to have him just give us a bit of an idea of a project we're working on now of how these things can be taken into consideration when developing here. So yeah, it looks like we'll be a bit of a guinea pig on this one. But we're going to be talking to Laurent about positioning of houses, land, living in things, energy as well. So it's going to be very, very interesting. Remember, guys, if you're looking to do anything here in Costa Rica or just want to chat with us, as I say, we've got 30 minutes for anyone. In the description down below is a link that you can click and find 30 minutes to chat with somebody in our team. You can also email us as well. I actually get all the emails, info@investingatcostarica.com. That's info@investingatcostarica.com. But anyway, let's get straight into the podcast. Good afternoon, Laura. How are you doing?
I'm good. I'm in Costa Rica. I can't complain. Good afternoon, Richard.
Fantastic. I mean, you are from France, and Costa Rica and France are my two favorite countries in the world. They outbeat England, which is where I'm from. I spend more time in France and the UK than France and Costa Rica than any other place in the world. So yeah. Well, Laurent, very much appreciate you kind of joining us here on the podcast. I think what we're about to discuss is something that I haven't really touched on, which is a lot of spirit and also energy, and Feng Shui, and kind of, I would say kind of like the, Eastern world, like the East, the old world, rather than the West world, which is kind of, I think, very important. I think it's coming back, especially as we're seeing it in medicine. We're seeing a lot of it in medicine, and we're going to start to see a lot more of it here in Costa Rica. But the first question I'd love to ask people, Laurent, is that, there's been so much volatility in Western markets in the Western world. I don't think that's changing anytime soon. Quite the opposite, it may get even more volatile. But I mean, what you've been in Costa Rica a little bit now, what are you seeing kind of happening here in Costa Rica?
I'm going to base my analysis on the principle of Feng Shui. So in Feng Shui, we look at landform. We look at position of mountains, the shape of the mountain, their nature, and also the position of large body of water like lake and ocean. So there's a reason why Costa Rica has been more politically and economically stable than the neighborhood country. And in Feng Shui, in what I've seen so far in the placement of certain type of landform, it's going to remain prosperous with difference from region to region. But I would say, that I don't think investor has anything to worry about the whole country, basically political and economical stability. On the central place of Costa Rica is interesting as well, because center is very important in Feng Shui. That's something we really emphasize. So the fact that Costa Rica is central, in America has to do with its prosperity as well.
Well, and it's also, again, the majority of the people live here in the center, in the Central Valley. If that makes sense. But,
indeed. It's center of the center.
Yeah. I mean, what is it? You'd mentioned there about its neighbors, which is Nicaragua, Panama, and these other things. What is it that makes Costa Rica so, what does it have that makes it so unique when it comes to Feng Shui?
Well, we have, for example, a formula called direct or indirect spirit, which has to do with the placement of large body of water like the ocean. So the placement of the ocean, basically every 20 years, we have period changing in Feng Shui. That's how you can predict just with the landform, the prosperity of a region based on where is the lake, where is the ocean. So West Vancouver, for example, where I live for a while, will remain prosperous no matter what is the period. Chicago goes through great fluctuation because of the placement of the Great Lakes that is not always prosperous. So you can see the history of Chicago has been complicated. But Costa Rica, there's always in the placement of the ocean, in west, northwest, and so on, there's always a direction that will work for this placement of water, bringing prosperity no matter what the period. So we have entered a new period in Feng Shui since last year called Period 9, which is ruled by the fire element. So it brings much more volatility. It brings an emphasis on new technology, on Bitcoin, crypto, AI, all those things that are linked to the fire element. But what is traditionally the West, which is more metal, will be attacked by the fire. So the West, as we think about it, traditionally, meaning Europe, for example, will go through more instability. But the center, on the position of Costa Rica, on the placement of body of water and so on, will remain prosperous normally.
Wow. It's just a very, if you'd have asked me 20 years ago to have a podcast on Feng Shui and start talking energy, I mean, I wouldn't even know where to start, and I'd probably laugh at you. I'd love to say that my wife is a white witch, Laurent. She's a doula, so she does a lot of hypnobirthing. She does a lot of birthing. So my wife has definitely helped me, I would say, be in touch with my spiritual side. I come from a business, very logic world, very investing, but it's difficult here in Costa Rica not for that spiritual side to enter in, and I don't think you can live here unless that there is a spiritual side to you either.
Indeed.
There's something just very unique about Costa Rica, and you can feel its energy. Even when people come here, they feel its energy, and the people here have a certain type of energy as well, which is very, very different. I travel, and I'm sure you have, all over the world, but when I come to Costa Rica, it feels in harmony. Like everything just kind of feels quiet and tranquil, and it's very odd.
It is a grounding place. I would say that's the main definition I would bring to it. It's a grounding place. And what fascinates me is that so far there is really a phase of, different phase of expats in Costa Rica, but they're all looking for a better energy, better well-being, and also they are attracted to the spiritual side. But so far, unless I'm mistaken, I don't think the spiritual side being connected to the house and property development. So that's what I would love to bring here, because it's quite unique that you have so much spiritual retreat and travel and even expat attracted to this energy here, but they don't bring it to their home, to their house, basically. They separate both,
Well, look, I mean, hold that thought 2 seconds, because I will get into design at the moment, but I just want to keep going. Like you've mentioned about the position of Costa Rica, its water bodies, its mountains, etc. Are there areas of Costa Rica that have strong energy based on like what you've seen and where you visited here?
Yes, so I haven't revisited, because I came here 12 years ago to plant some seeds, so to speak, for my future. But I haven't revisited the whole country, but I can say safely that the area of Tamarindo should remain very prosperous. The East Coast, we just talked about it just before the podcast started, will fluctuate. There will be a period of more prosperity, but it is a bit, the weaker side in terms of prosperity of Costa Rica. On the west, the southwest side will remain prosperous. On Manuel Antonio, which is more the west side, if you want, will fluctuate as well. San Jose will fluctuate as well, because the mountain around San Jose are prosperous or not so prosperous depending on the period. So San Jose it's an interesting capital, San Jose, because you can see there's a bit of faded glory, but there's also area like Santa Teresa that are booming and attracting a lot of wealth, On Santa Teresa, by the way, is west of San Jose. It's not east of San Jose. So, we repeat this pattern where some northwest, west, and southwest direction will be more prosperous, but not in the west. If you take the whole map of the world, it's not the west, it's not Europe, for example, that will have a lot of prosperity. It's more west, northwest, and southwest, or specific countries that are more central or south, With this new period, which is period 9, the south, all the southern hemisphere will rise. On the northern hemisphere, it's not like the northern hemisphere is going to go down the drain, But Latin and South America are going to rise automatically.
That's why I moved here 20 odd years ago, was because I kind of felt that the West was the old world and that Latin America is the new world. And I've been exploring a lot more Chile, Argentina, and I'm like, wow. It's an empty canvas. It's beautiful. There's not that much development, or it's very natural. and Costa Rica is starting to develop a little bit more. And those countries just intrigue me because they are kind of like old Europe. They feel a little bit like old Europe as well, but just an empty canvas.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Argentina is quite fascinating because they certainly went through some economic hardship,
Yeah,
but it's game changer since last year. So we're going to see where it goes.
definitely. I mean, let's go now into, again, as you'd mentioned there about like home design here. When you work with, I mean, you're working with kind of architects or you're working with home, like how does it typically work when are you kind of an addition to the project? Like how do you kind of integrate your project?
I am often an addition to the project, and I wish I was called at an early phase, an earlier phase. Because a lot of people have this assumption, which is normal, that Feng Shui is mostly interior design. But historically, and as a practice, that's not what it is. Interior design is a last layer. We can still do things in interior design, in terms of symbolism, color, and so on. But at first, it is a management of natural energy. Basically, to make it simple, what acupuncture does to your body, Feng Shui does for your house or business. Okay, so there is a natural good flow of energy depending of the location, the facing direction of the house or the property, where is the main door, and so on. So we have rule like the meridian in acupuncture, where should be the water exit, like toilets, kitchen, and so on, where should be the stove, where should be the front door, and so on. And if you respect those rules, you naturally gonna be in sync with your environment and attract prosperity and more well-being. If you go against those rules, you will have a problematic house or business. You can see the same type of business. Sometimes you go into a mall or a street with different restaurants. They offer the same thing. Can be, a luxury restaurant, can be a soda, doesn't matter. But depending on they're facing east or west, it's not going to be busy the same. And they have pretty much the same menu. So you're scratching your head because same quality of food, basically same offer, but it's not the same amount of people on same prosperity. In Feng Shui, we explain it very, very well. So basically, if we can be here at the inception, Feng Shui practitioner, if we can design with the architect, we have a better chance to design a home that is healthy rather than sick. You have sick building, basically. You have building where you enter, you feel unwell, you don't sleep well, you're not going to be able to focus. And I remember this story, which is crazy, when I was scouting for an apartment in London, which used to be home. So I went with, my Chinese compass to scout for different apartments with realtor. And one of them was very curious. He asked me, "What are you doing?" So I explained to him. He said, "Listen, I don't know if I believe in it or not, but we have a house in the agency we call the divorce house because 6 couples moved in, and those 6 couples ended up divorcing on leaving this place." I say, "Well, statistically, I think now you believe in Feng Shui."
Wow.
Yeah.
I mean, just to give any of the listeners here that are like, some just tidbits of stuff of like, look, a house should not face this way. Like, what are just the basic concepts that like someone that is really not into this or might go, I'm not too sure about whether I believe in it or not, of be like, look, here is some advice that I have for you, beyond hiring yourself, Laurent, of like, look, spend some time there, look at the sun where it is, make sure it doesn't face this way, make sure the body of water, I don't know. Even I don't know about it. Believe in it? 100% yes, Lauren, because I've been into enough homes where I'm like, the energy is good in this one, the energy is bad in that one. Even my neighbors' houses, sometimes I'm in them and I'm like, my energy is not like vibrating at the same frequency that this, like, whereas in my own home, I'm very, very comfortable.
Yeah, so I can give you a few good rules of placement of the house. For example, one golden rule we have but some, property developers tend to forget, we don't place the house or, the village or whatever you want to develop into the vein of the dragon. So those are the kind of ridges you see in a mountain where the river, the rainwater is going to flow, So there's obviously the aspect of flooding that some people keep forgetting, you've seen in Valencia or other property development. But it's just because the energy eventually, when it rains and you have a big rainy season in Costa Rica, will be too strong and it will hit the building, So even if it's flooding proof, if you want, what you build, there will be a chi, an energy that is too strong to have a peaceful house when it's placed there. Another thing is what we call the celestial animals. So that's just a fancy poetic Chinese name just to say landform. So you want the left side to be a bit higher, with a mountain than the right side. Okay, the left side will relate to men living in the household, on authority, reputation. The right side will relate to money, but you don't want the right side, which is a more feminine side, to be above the masculine side. So it sounds old-fashioned, but it has to do with polarity of yin and yang. Okay, if you have a mountain on the left side that is higher than your building, which is good, but also higher than the right side, you already have a good setup, one of the good Feng Shui setup. And you want to have a mountain at your back as well, something protecting. It's literally like someone having your back, So it's going to protect your back from energy attack if you want. It's going to also protect your descendants, so meaning your children and your future prosperity. Ideally, if you have a body of water, you would prefer to have it flowing in front, passing in front of your house rather than at the back. It's better thing. And you don't want the flow to be like torrential. You don't want like a very active waterfall or river. You want something that is like, a nice stream, and that will bring prosperity, basically. But you don't want something coming really directly hitting your home, like a big river bend or a big road really hitting your home. That can be good for business. So that's funny. We have different rules for business or house. For business, if you have something hitting the business, it will bring a lot of clients in. But if you want to sleep well, to be in good health on the long run in this house, if you have something hitting the front door or the facade all the time, it's not great.
And Laurent, again, because, it's amazing how many clients, and I'm sure a couple will chuckle listening to this podcast, that I've said to them when we've been out with them of like, land has energy, and when you're on it, you'll feel that energy or you don't. And when you find the right one, you'll know in 2 seconds. I've had clients who look for signs on property. I had one that were building a retreat, and she was like, we were on there, and she was like, I'm looking for a sign. And I said, well, what sign are you looking for? She's like, for me, it's a hummingbird. And I'm like, there's one right there. And she's like, what? And I'm like, there's one right there. Like, look, there's 2 in that tree right there. And she was like, okay, duh, let's buy this land. Now they have a retreat where, they help people with PTSD, usually veterans, basically here in Costa Rica. But do you ever get involved at the start when someone's looking like hey, I want to find a piece of land, say in Costa Rica, but help making sure it has the right energy?
Yes. So I can do very comprehensive report to teach you, to give you a crash course into finding a good piece of land Feng Shui wise on a bad one. So it depends how dedicated you are to this process or not, because of course there will be many layers. And it can be exciting for some people, and some people prefer me to be just the interior designer kind of guy, But if you do that, you're gonna have a bit more work, before finding your land, but you're gonna find a land that is more prosperous, So choosing the land is paragon, Even the shape of the parcel is really important. So we try to have regular shape, everything that will be L shape or really unusual shape, you will have to correct it with basically what you plant, the type of tree you plant, and to try to go back to a regular shape for the house, surrounding the house.
Wow.
That would be a good thing. Yeah.
Wow, I'd never even really thought about that before, just the irregular shapes and kind of making it look a bit regular. I mean, are there any other aspects that you bring to a kind of design or even a build or, furniture? I mean, because the whole process is pretty long. You talked kind of about its location, but what about like materials? Is there anything about materials that are used, Laurent, in Feng Shui or?
Yeah, in old time, the first trace of Yin Feng Shui are Neolithic China. So we're talking about, time when they didn't have to problematic material, basically.
Yeah.
But of course, modern Feng Shui, we had this layer. So there's really an awareness of eco-construction in Costa Rica, and it's great if you can blend those things. So, I remember specifically a rich client in Vancouver. And I went, to the new living room they designed, but the smell of the linoleum and new materials they put here was so overpowering, they couldn't use this room for months, So I would say it's not even Feng Shui, it's good sense, It's not going to be very good for your health if you're at this level. You cannot occupy this room for a month before the smell dissipates, but of course, every material has a vibration, every color has a vibration. So we try to pair this with eco material, pens that are not toxic and things like that,
Okay.
Really. So the closer you are to nature and eco materials, the more. It's the same with clothes, If you wear linen or silk, you're going to feel very, very different than if you wear spandex all day long. It's not the same
Yep.
vibration.
Yeah.
So it's the same for your house. It's funny how people can think about what they eat, for example, in terms of organic food. There's really an awareness here, local organic food and so on, but they're not going to look at which mattress they sleep on,
Yeah.
which paints they use on the wall, all those things. So yeah, we have a fantastic, what I bring can be really the last layer, or it can be extremely intricate at every single level. But if you do property development and you add all those layers, imagine the edge you have, because people come here with an eco awareness. So if you tell them, I have this amazing property development that been ecological and feng shui from A to Z, I think you will have an amazing age.
Yeah. Well, I mean, look, I mean, as you said there, a lot of people come to Costa Rica to feel grounded. And I mean, whether they think about it, grounded, to relax or whatever. But the beauty of Costa Rica sometimes is nobody cares what car you drive, what house you have. Like, none of that matters. It's more about the quality of the human being, The opposite. I mean, if you have a flashy car here, everyone's like, you're an idiot, you know.
Yeah.
Because everything, there is a humility to living here. And I know, again, a lot of very, very rich people here, and they just drive regular cars because, like, you don't want to be flashy. And it's just not part of being humble, and doesn't really go, with the, I suppose, energy that Costa Rica has. But yeah, I mean, like, if you incorporate yourself in it, like, is Feng Shui and kind of its design and layout and energy only for people with building multi-million-dollar homes, Lauren? Or because, a lot of the, like, someone might be listening to this that's building up, like, looking to buy a piece of land for $100,000 or build a house for 300 or 400, like, and going, wow, Lauren's only really worked with people in, Vancouver before, in like one of the richest areas. Like, is it something that they can also bring you in on that's going to be somewhat affordable as well, if that makes sense?
Oh yeah, very much so. Like when I have clients in London and Paris, which are some of my current main market, sometimes, because of the rent, you have small apartments, in those places. And there's always something to do. I pretty much guarantee that the Feng Shui process will improve how you feel in your place and will improve some aspect of your life. So if I am here at the designing phase, bingo, we have the best of both worlds. But, at any phase, on no matter what your budget, I have something to offer, basically. You have to take people where they are.
Yeah.
And, if I will only cater to very rich people, I don't think it would be aligned with my mission, which is to provide, better well-being and prosperity. And I started, from a modest family on modest in my work as well. So you build up this over time. But yeah, it's super exciting for me to go from someone, with possibly a struggling mother who has a middle life crisis to property development, which is a very different scale. It's not the same thing you're going to bring as well, there's not the same relation with the client, there's not the same demand. So it's very interesting, because when we do people individually, we also go into, what is their destiny, what is the date of birth, at which timing are you? Those are things I'm looking at with, the astrological part we can graph to Feng Shui. So there's a more metaphysical, esoteric part that sometimes, people who are dealing with architects and so on don't necessarily want to hear about. They want an efficient house that brings, more well-being and prosperity, but they're not interested in the metaphysical part. So I really adapt myself to what is the client demand on the budget as well.
Look, you've sold me, Lauren. Like, again, I'm typically not a spiritual person, maybe more spiritual than I was 20 years ago. But, I mean, if there's one house I've been into and I can remember it now. And I mean, I walked into it and I was like, wow. Like, for just walking through the front door, I hadn't seen the rest of the house. It was just something about it just hit me, dude. And I was like, I'm so aligned with this property. It's insane. And that's one house over thousands that I've seen. I mean, I've seen some nice houses where I'm like, yes, this can work. But that one house still, like, still like is in my dreams, dude. I just can't get rid of it, and
yeah. Did you buy it? Did you invest?
No, it was actually it was a lot more. It was way overpriced for like what I wanted to do, because I live in the same house I bought 20 odd years ago. And like, I spend a lot of my money on traveling and developing and building stuff in Costa Rica. I don't live in a fancy house. In fact, a lot of people, like when they come to my house, they're like, wow, Rich, I was expecting something like a lot more grandiose and larger than this. And I'm like, man, for me, it's a place where I sleep, a place where I'm growing my family. But like, we spend a lot of time traveling as well. July, we're never here. January, we're always traveling. Of like, I don't have a huge house. I don't need a huge house, Um, but if I ever got to the point, I'm going to try and rebuild that house at some point in the future, but up in the mountains.
Mhm.
Um, and I know I can't recreate it perfectly, but as I said, I'm a believer where I'd be like, okay, let me get Lauren. Here's the land I'm looking at. Here's kind of the house design and the feel that this gave me of like, how do I recreate this somehow to just make sure that the energy of the land and Costa Rica and the property and me is all kind of aligned, if that makes sense.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. The expertise of Feng Shui even go to where you're gonna put the gutter,
Yep.
the rain pipe and that kind of things, because where the water exits your house will bring prosperity or challenge. So
Yeah.
we really go to some layers that are very intricate. But really what I would like people to understand today, it's not about wind shine, it's not about gizmo. It's, historically, it was designed first for how do we make the village prosperous? How do we have better crop, better energy? How can we last longer? And then it went to the emperor of China, and those people were not interested into, fancy gizmos and that kind of things. They wanted to remain power and to have more power as well. So that's the
Yep.
reason why the Forbidden City is built entirely on Feng Shui principle. That's the reason why Hong Kong is still using Feng Shui master, for any building in the financial center. And by the way, there is really a growing interest of Chinese investor into property in Costa Rica. So obviously, if the house has been designed with Feng Shui, they would go for that one over a random one. That's for sure. That's
Yep.
for sure. That's what I had in Vancouver. Some basically a real estate agency were stuck with selling to the Chinese, and they called me to redesign the place because they were like, Chinese people tell us it's bad Feng Shui and we have no clue what it means.
Yeah.
So there's also this branch of investment, but yeah, really, I pretty much guarantee, your house will have a different energy, your property development will have a different energy that will attract more people. And for people buying, I guarantee you will feel better once you live in this place. So it's a win-win situation. After people, who hire me can choose to advertise it, like for example, this house has been made with a Feng Shui master, so that can be an edge, or they can keep it,
Yeah.
discreet. But there just will be an energy that will be that will stand out in the crowd, basically.
Awesome. Well, Lauren, I've taken enough of your time, and this has just been very, very interesting, even for me. Again, I think it's a very different podcast than what I've had before. And when you were introduced to me, I was like, oh God. And now I'm like, okay, look, I'm a believer, buddy. But my last question for you, I mean, that I'd love to ask everyone, if you inherited $500,000 and you had to invest it into a business or real estate in Costa Rica, Lauren, what would you invest it in and why?
That's certainly I would build another spiritual retreat,
Yep.
but I would love to build a spiritual retreat where you unplug from everything. There is no Wi-Fi signal. It's
Yep.
totally shielded, it's totally grounded. You can detox from modern world. That's one area. And probably on the side, I will open an animal refuge. I have a strong connection to animals, especially dogs. And yeah, I would do something like this to have a good karma, basically. But yeah, I would dream of a retreat where it's not just a spiritual retreat with plant medicine or that kind of thing. I see there's a lot of offer around those things, but rather it's a place where you won't get your cell phone signal. You won't be able to connect. You will be forced, so to speak, to be grounded for a week or so and see what it does to your body and mind. That's
Yeah.
something and that takes, some creativity into designing, because those wave goes to everything. So you have to build strong wall in Adobe and so on, to really have this grounding properties, basically. So yeah, that would be what I would do.
I was chatting with someone the other day, actually some really good friends of mine, of like some of my best ideas have actually been hiking. And Chiripo, I don't know what it is. I've hiked Chiripo like 5 times, but every single time I hike down Chiripo, like it just come like energy come like ideas come to me, man. And I'm not too sure whether it's because I've digitally detoxed when I've been up there. Like I'm on my own. It's a very different world up there of Costa Rica. Like, there's nothing there, if that makes sense. At the highest
Yeah.
peak, and it's a total disconnection. There is no cell phone signal. There's no nothing. And it's interesting. I'm still trying to figure out, why I have that, but I keep hiking Chiripo because just the guys in my office just say, Rich, can you just do it once a year, not twice a year? Because it's too much. But yeah, I get it, that digital detox sometimes and that grounding, because it's amazing things that can happen when that happens.
Yeah, we have such a wealth of information on stimuli right now that there is almost no room to have silence and still time to have ideas, like boredom is very useful,
Correct.
when kids used to be bored, they could create more things.
Yep.
Now you fill the cup so much now that, where's a place for your own ideas, basically. So
yeah.
It's great to have places for this. Yeah.
I agree. Well, Laurent, I really appreciate your time and sharing your experience here on the podcast. Anyone that wants to get in contact with Laurent, I'm going to put all of his contact details down in the description. But sir, thank you very much for your time.
Thank you so much. It was such a pleasure.
Thank you. Bye. Very different podcast there with Laurent, guys. I'm sure some of you found that very, very interesting. I'm sure some of you learned a lot, and I'm sure some of you are like, what is this guy on about? But I think one of the things about Costa Rica that there is an energy that you do have here, whether that's, that you have a sense of feeling relaxed here, whether it's a sense of energy, a sense of place. Costa Rica is a very unique location, which I think a lot of you know. And I just think that, again, I don't think Laurent's that expensive, guys. And I think it can really help, just really position a house or really understanding a piece of land or what it is that you're looking for, just to make sure it aligns with, who you are and what it is that you're looking for as well. I mean, the older I get, the more I would say wavy davy that I kind of get, or wavy gravy, as we say in English. But again, as I said on the thing, my wife is a bit of a white witch, as I like to say. Anyone that knows her, so I'm sure that we'll actually have like an opening ceremony of some description when we finish some of our projects. But also, again, if anyone's looking to invest in Costa Rica as well, we have a variety of different investment vehicles here. We're about to start another one in Manuel Antonio, and also another one up in Arenao as well. They're already under construction, but we're about to start some new projects there. So just feel free to reach out to us, guys, if you want to get involved. I think the minimum investment is about $100,000. You get usage nights and also returns per year. And at the end of like 3 to 5 years, we actually sell the project or sell the actual individual property as well. And the good thing about it is we actually sell something with a future cash flow. So a lot of people need the logic behind the emotion, and we certainly provide that logic for future buyers. So you can email us info@investingcostarica.com. That's info@investingcostarica.com. If you're enjoying the podcast, please subscribe. Please give us 5 stars, a review, pass the pod and share. But I appreciate everybody's support. Until the next podcast, we'll catch you later. Bye.
The #1 Costa Rica real estate and investment podcast, bringing you experts from all over Costa Rica.